Hi, I'm Brian Gadwell, a developer on the Verastream team at Attachment. This video shows how to configure Verastream Host Integrator version 7 session servers for load distribution and failover scenarios. Session servers load deployed models, connect to host systems, and serve requests from clients. I'm going to set up a scenario in which a company has two geographically distinct groups, East Coast and West Coast. They'd like each group to use a nearby session server unless that server goes offline. For example, East Coast should use the East session server if available, and if not, it should fail over to the West session server. Also, West is a much larger group, so they actually have a domain with two session servers that uses load distribution. I've installed the session server on 3 computers. I also set up a management server cluster to manage the session servers. I'll start by connecting the administrative console to the management cluster using the DNS common name I've configured for this cluster. I'll open up the Session Server Explorer, and now I'll add the 3 session servers that will be used to show both load distribution and failover scenarios. You add session servers by clicking the Add button in the Session Server Explorer. I've already deployed the Kix Accounts demo model to each session server. Every session server must have the same resource to fulfill client requests in load distribution and failover scenarios. Now I'll create 2 load distribution domains, one named West and one named East. Clients requesting the Kix Accounts demo model will connect via these domains. I'll configure the West domain first by adding 2 session servers to it. I'll select the properties, click the Add button, and select one of the 3 available session servers, in this case West Server 1. I'll click the Add button again, and I'll add West Server 2. As you can see, each session server in a domain has 2 properties, wait and priority. I'll discuss the wait property first because it deals directly with load distribution. Although the wait can be any value, it is best practice that the wait of each session server in a given priority adds up to 100. I'll set the wait of each of these session servers to 50. Because each of these session servers are at the same priority, roughly 50% of the client requests will go to West Server 1 and 50% of the client requests will go to West Server 2. Now I'll run a test application that simulates 5 clients, each connecting 10 times to the Kix Accounts demo model via the West domain we just created. As you can see from the results, roughly 50% of the client requests went to West Server 1 and 50% of the client requests went to West Server 2. I have the West domain configured with 2 session servers and load distribution. Next, I'll configure the East domain with 1 primary server but with failover, so if that server goes down, clients will connect to the West servers. I'll add a server to the East domain. In this case, I'm going to add East Server 1. I'll use priority to configure failover. The management domain will route a request to the available server with the lowest priority first. I'll leave the priority of this server at 0. Because I only have 1 server in the domain at this priority, I do not need to configure the wait property. Now I'm going to add the West session servers to this domain. And as you can see, session servers can be part of any number of load distribution domains. This time, I'm going to set the priority to 1, and following the 100% best practice, I'm going to set the wait to 50. I'm going to do the same thing for the second West session server. Now, if the server at priority 0 goes down, all client requests will be routed to the servers at the next priority. In this case, roughly 50% of the requests will go to West Server 1, and 50% of the requests will go to West Server 2, in the case that East Server 1 goes offline. Now I'm connecting to the East domain on the left and the West domain on the right. You can see that the West domain is switching between servers, but 100% of the East requests are going to the single East server. Now I'll stop the East session server. Now you can see the failover happen as the requests in the left window start being distributed between the two West domain servers, 50-50 as I weighted them. If I start the East server again, it takes a moment, but it automatically becomes available to the domain, and because its priority is the lowest, all requests start being routed to it again. Finally, we'll configure the West domain for failover using the East session server. I'll bring up the properties, and I'll add the East server, setting its priority to 1. Because it's the only server at this priority, I do not need to modify the wait property. This server will only be used if both servers at priority 0 become offline. We've shown how to configure load distribution using the wait property and failover using the priority property for Verastream Host Integrator version 7 load distribution domains. Thanks for watching.